Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast and another impromptu stream. Let's start. Exclusive. Arsenal are targeting Christian Mosquera as their ideal defensive this summer, says Hand of Arsenal. Contacts have already been established as Arsenal look to beat off the rivals, he says. Andre Alberta has backup options lined up. And if that wasn't enough, a few minutes later, name-checking Hand of Arsenal, Fabrizio Romano comes in. Arsenal are in active talks to sign Christian Mosquera. He's among top targets for centre-back position. And then, of course, The Athletic, Never Dawn Scene, and Gunner Blog, and so on have come in. North London Club have made a defensive signing a priority this summer with the 20-year-old Spain youth international currently their preferred option. George is here. We got him out of bed. We were going to try and record a scatter, but we thought we'd go live. Arsenal are moving, baby.
I don't know. I got told that we were going to make a signing. but you know what? It's a defender, defensive midfielder, and goalkeeper, so they have different timelines associated with them.
For Arsenal, they do.
For Arsenal, that is the quick business. Mate, I'm ecstatic. I am ecstatic about it. We walked into the summer with two major holes. I didn't know if we would be able to get both of them, and I still don't know if we're going to be able to get both of them, but to get one of this link done, and by the way, this is a link that not a link rather, but a position that we've been asking for over a year. It's now a year and a half. People remember, not this season, but the season before, Mikel was screaming for center back cover and putting Declan Rice as a message to the board in January in order to get cover from the year before on this. And so I think this is just a phenomenal deal. And, if anything spells the end for Tomiyasu in terms of a sporting project officially, in my opinion, I think you're looking at a player right now that's a true defender, which I really, really like. This is a guy that I've made the comparison on YouTube, and, we'll do it a little bit more on the Scouted, but he is very Rudiger-esque in the way that he approaches play. I mean, I think there might be some tweaks that we might have to make in terms of his controlled aggression. He's definitely a prospect, so I don't want people to come in and say, like, wow, we're signing somebody that immediately is, challenging in the Gahey aspect. Like, this very much is a prospect player, but I think he's got elite potential. And the one thing that I'm really happy about is physically, this guy is in like the top 1%. Of defenders, recovery pace, the aggression kind of in the tackle. But again, this is Gabriel Leal, so there's gonna be a lot of things that we'll talk about, maybe a little bit more specifically coaching wise.
Let's just part that chat for now, just to sort of introduce the player, because this is a player that I think some people may not have heard of. So let's just go through. Christian Mosquera is 20 years old. He came through in the Valencia academy. He's made 82 appearances for Valencia since 2021. He's their youngest ever centre back for Valencia, which tells you he's part of the Spain U21 and U23 squad. Hasn't quite made his breakthrough into the sort of the big leagues there. He played 38 out of 38 games in La Liga last season. His contract is expiring next year in 2026, which I think is part of the discussion we'll come to on the deal side of things. Injury wise, I think he's doing all right. Mosquera is a name that I'll be totally honest, at the start of the summer I confused him with the guy from Wolves. So he's a player I've watched a little bit of, and we'll get into the data and so on and so forth. But George, just for people who have never seen Mosquera, you sort of discussed it there. I think it's always good to give sort of player comparisons, but talk to us about his strengths and weaknesses as a starting point before we get into the data.
Just as like a little bit of a repeat, I guess. This is Antonio Rudiger in mentality, or even if people are a little bit older to remember, it was kind of like Gabriel, the Brazilian center back that we bought from La Liga, in a sense, where we're looking at somebody with just elite physical gifts. We are going to have to work on a couple of the technical things. I think he's got some pretty good technical fundamentals in terms of the pace of the pass, him recognizing his options ahead. But, the things like getting the ball out of his feet and working on making sure that that's a little bit more of a smooth transition to set himself up for the pass, very similar to the work that we did with Gabriel when we first got him from Lille, are things that we're going to have to do with Mosquera a little bit. But in terms of, the aerial ability, despite being 6'2", he's pretty poor aerially. Like, that's definitely something that we're going to have to work on. I don't think he's dominant aerially, but this is a guy whose superpower is covering ground, repeat sprint ability, the acceleration is crazy, and just the aggression that he takes in the tackle. Again, very Rudiger-esque. Like he's going to take you out. Um, we will have to work a little bit on the controlled aggression. But what really excites me is when you pair this with a potential Calafiori signing, like as a center back partnership. This is exactly what I want. I mean, Calafiori is somebody who's so brilliant on the ball, who's absolutely going to be that leader. But then his complement partner needs to be a pure defender, somebody that can sweep a little bit more as he kind of, goes on his forays forward. We need somebody willing to hold the fort down and able to be an elite ground coverage defender. And that's what I really like, because now we've got literally every center back profile on either side. We were spoiled for choice. You want ground coverage on the right, Mosquera does that. You want ground coverage on the left, you've got that in Gabriel. You want ball players on the left, you've got Calafiori. You want a ball player on the right, you've got Saliba. There's crazy, crazy flexibility that that he gives us. And by the way, like, it's not just right center back. Like, he played the season before primarily at left center back too. So like he definitely does have the ability to cover across that back line. But I would say if people haven't watched him, the transition to right back might be a little bit more difficult. Like he just doesn't currently show it. But if you look at his physical gifts, I think you could definitely coach him into right back versatility. I mean, you look at the power that he's able to do, the repeat sprints again. He's wiry and, again, somebody that struggles aerially and maybe a little bit with controlled aggression, like that punchy ability to get to your marker is something that you'd see in fullback. So I think somebody could coach him to be a right back. It's just not something that he's going to offer right now. But primarily you're looking at a right center back. You're looking at left center back versatility. I will say, though, if people are asking, can he be a central center back? I just don't know if his mentality is there and if his composure on the ball. This is more for me a wide center back in a 3, depending on the two. And I think Calafiori is a lot more of your central center backup in that sense. So, but yeah, man, like I'm really ecstatic, and there is something to be said with all of this Spanish recruitment, regardless of what you might say in terms of Mosquera, Nico Williams, Juan Garcia, Zubamendi. It's interesting. Let's put it that way. I just don't. I think it's not just because Berta has come from La Liga that we're doing this. I mean, it seems a lot more coordinated and has been for a while that we've looked at Spain as a potential bed for talent, which is maybe something we can touch on a little bit later.
Yeah. Let's come to the numbers. This is from Scott Willis. So this is ball playing centre-back template compared to centre-backs. This is more, I suppose this is more sort of the defensive side of things in these sorts of numbers. So you can see some decent numbers here in terms of the defensive duels and the efficiency up here. Profiling well. If you don't know, Valencia sort of mid-table-ish in La Liga. I think they were 12th this season. So yeah, there's some sort of middle-of-the-road numbers. The aerial duel numbers are super concerning for a player who's 6'2" and who's sort of maybe got some stuff to develop on the ball. That is something that I'd love to see develop and hopefully grow. Just very quickly, because we probably need to move on from the player himself onto other things. Is there a specific thing that you can see why he struggles with duels, considering he has the physical gift? So, but there are players who are rash or just don't quite prepare themselves properly. What do you think it is?
Judging the flight of the ball, he gets underneath it and he's not able to really understand where it needs to be a little bit. In that sense. He loses it, I'd say. I'd call it, the ball's in the air and he loses the flight of the ball a little bit. And so instead of going to overcommit, he'll wait for it to go down. And I think he's just so good on the ground and physically. There is a little bit that I think he goes, I'm really bad at it. I'm not going to engage in the duel, and I'm going to wait for you to try to control it and then engage in my ground duel because I'm so good at that. So there's a little bit of that, but I think if, a little bit of tracking with the ball, I mean, it's not that he doesn't have a good leap. He's got a great leap and he's got all the physical gifts. But again, I think judging the flight of the ball is probably his biggest issue as far as aerial duels go.
Sure. There's some more numbers here. So slightly more encouraging on the ball stuff. So in terms of his pass efficiency and sort of numbers here, so some similar numbers in terms of the final third entries, which you've seen before. The tackle percentage versus dribblers is quite encouraging. The sort of clearances and so on. Again, the aerial duels showing up on there as well, but a couple of new numbers there. I wonder, George, whether we just need to quickly look at the more basic stuff quickly in terms of the positioning and the foot. I was on his heat maps earlier, and he's on the left-hand side for Valencia. according to SofaScore. Is that as far as your understanding? Because I was
Well,
I
he's
was under the
played there,
impression he was a right sider. Yeah.
He is. Well, he's right-footed. I mean, he's got flexibility to both, right? And I mean, much in the same way that Van Dijk can play a left center back, he can do the same too. I do prefer him on the right as well. Like when you watch him for the youth Spain teams, that's where he plays a little bit more. And of course, like one of his hallmark performances against Real Madrid, in which he's locking off Vinicius Jr., you can just see the way that he approaches ankles.
Yeah.
A little bit better for me on the right, but it's not to say that he can't play left center back. He can, but he's more of a right-footed player, and and he's also not ambipedal. Like I don't think it's that. It's again very much a Van Dijk situation of a primary right footer playing on the left. And that's a little bit more of what Valencia need. But personally, I think you're definitely looking at Saliba cover here with versatility to left center back if he needed to. And then a surprise coachable into right back. I think it's not something that he offers right now, but I look at the traits and I think that's easily coached into something that I can use. The wiry frame, the aggression up to your marker, the repeat sprints, the acceleration, his dominance in the duel as far as really covering ground quickly. The only thing that I'd like to see is that a lot of the issues that I do have in possession are a little bit more about getting the ball out of his feet, understanding maybe some of the technical aspects of some of his passing, because I think he spots passes well, but again, the execution isn't always there. His first touch can sometimes get away from him. Like it's not perfect in terms of setting it up. So I would have questions about whether or not he shows any composure in the final third, about his whipped crosses, his execution on those, and maybe even half space crossing. That's just something I haven't really seen sample of, but I'm interested to see when I see a player with such physical gifts that can do such repeat sprints, that can be up and down on the line and can really cover ground so quickly. I'm like, my mind immediately goes, can I turn you into a fullback flexibility? But that's just not something that I would see right now. He's very much a right-footed right center back primarily, who Valencia have used a lot at left center back, but really you're looking at kind of Saliba cover here.
Yeah, it's weirdly, I just clear up a couple of confusion in the chat, because I was confused about it. It's not the Mosquera at Wolves. This is a different guy. He is not the guy who was up in our players' business, let's call it that. Just to finish up on the data as well, was a good numbers from Who Scored. Christian Mosquera had the best ground duel win rate with 70.5% in La Liga last season, with over 100 duels contested. Also, it's Christian. And I know, I can just tell this is going to be a consistent thing where people get that wrong. Christian Mosquera, just for people's.
My boy Chris.
For George, it'll be Moss or Mosquera, I think is your called mother. Let's come on to weirdly, I think that this deal slightly reminds me, from what you've been saying. Again, this is a player I need to watch more. We'll do a proper full scout episode. I've seen bits and comps and stuff, but I haven't really watched him. It sort of reminds me of the Nunes Tavares thing in a sense. I'm not commenting on the quality of the player, but when you have a player with that physical gift, at some point you just go, well, I hope I'm going to be able to mold you into what I want you to be. And I think when you watch him running, we were doing a scout episode with on Norgard yesterday, which you can check out. And there's just a moment where we're watching United versus Brentford, and Chido Obi makes a run, and your eyes just can't help but look, because some players just have that quality. And I think Mosquera is one of those, and hopefully we can mold him. Let's talk more the deal, etc. We'll come to sort of questions and so on. And thanks for the super chat. We'll come to that in just a sec. Arsenal are moving. As we said at the top of the show, Arsenal are beginning to make things happen. Obviously, Christian Norgard feels like things happen very, very quickly. I think within one day, we went from the first proper big link to, or I think it was a Danish newspaper in the morning, and then David Ornstein basically confirmed it by the evening. Similarly with Mosquera, I think this is the first thing I heard of it was literally that Hand of Arsenal post, and then David Ornstein's confirmed it and basically said it's happening. A couple of people have already, I think Nico Shearer says it's done. So it's certainly close. Arsenal are moving very, very quickly, and I wonder about how we interpret this sort of moving away from the player a little bit before we maybe go back to him. My suspicion is, George, right now we are locked, as Fabrizio would say, in talks with the Šeško and the Rodrigo and the whatever. And I think something has shifted. I think we now know something big has moved, whether it's we know, and I'm not saying we know what it is. I'm saying we know now whether we can get Rodrigo.
Well, internally we know.
Yeah. Internally, we now know. I suspect what's happened. We have more clarity on the Rodrigo deal. We have more clarity on the Šeško deal, or whatever it might be, and we're beginning to make some movements. And what I really like, George, is that we're proactive in this. We're getting things done extremely quickly, which tells you again all the prep and where are Arsenal. This is what they're doing. They're being in a position so they can go, man, straight away within a day. We've got our man. We've moved. We've got the player. We've got the personal terms. That's what's happening in that gap. The bigger deals that we're waiting for clarity because they're massive things, and then the sort of smaller stuff. And what I like, and sort of chronologically, which is the point I was going to make, chronologically, it's not we go get Rodrigo done, and then we do all the, or whatever it ends up being, and then we do all the squad. It's we get the squad done because we know we're going to end up with Rodrigo. And that is really, really how I would love Arsenal to approach this window. And it feels like they're sort of going that way. So yeah, just your sort of interpretation of how this is all playing out and the fact that these two deals have happened so quickly.
Mate, I don't want to do this, but I'm sorry. I'm seeing differences to Edu and Berta, like quite clearly. And, you know, I really don't want to kill an Arsenal man, but mate, this is just screaming to me a proper operator. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, you get a decision. Thomas Partey is not going to be signing with you after making negotiations, and 2 days later you sign his in-person replacement in the Premier League. We're not doing that last year. You know, we made sagas out of these depth signings.
I'm sorry to cut you, but it's such an important point when people say we're inactive. That Christian Norgard deal has been going on for 2 years. Like, please, can we stop this idea that the first time we ever spoke to Christian Norgard was on what, Tuesday? No, it wasn't. Yeah. Come on.
And I don't want to be like I told you so. Like when we first signed Berta, one of my biggest benefits was
you called it.
This is a guy that is going to have a lot of deals on the go. He's going to use the media. This is just a really experienced operator. And the things that I'm seeing are just really incredible. I mean, fans are losing their minds for no reason, in my opinion, because this is a pure negotiation tactic. If I was to buy a 75 million pound player, by the way, because we need two. Like when you're looking at like the Šeško and the Rodrigo, which are the two big links, you're talking over 60 million pounds on both deals, right? You're looking at major deals that have impacts on add-ons, for sure, right? Okay, if a club was to find out in the midst that I've secured a Rodrigo, do you not think that then Šeško becomes more expensive as the bigger deal? And they're saying, oh, well, you just spent 75 million pounds. Oh, you're interested in Mosquera. Oh, you're interested in this. Big clubs are going to notice that, and they're going to say, wow, your business, okay, I'm firm on my asking price. Look at Dortmund with Jeremy Bino-Gittins in terms of how they dealt with Chelsea, right? Like this is, so to me, to get your small deals, your relatively small deals, your kind of rate limiting step, I like to call them, right? If you get those done first, that's logical, okay? Then you start to pull on the major marquees. And what kills me is these are 100% holes in the squad. Okay, fine, you're getting the things that you don't want to see. You may want to see the forwards first, but it doesn't matter as long as those are in. And from a financial perspective, it's stupid to get your forwards first. Now, again, I'm telling you, if things don't work out, we'll be here to critique the club. Trust me. I've made a moniker of not recruiting a forward in the year of 2024. Please tell me that we won't critique it. We will. But I think this is just brilliant news in general. You can't look at the way that we've been moving over the last week and say that it's not brilliant. There's brilliance in terms of what we're doing right now. How brilliant it is dependent on some of the big moves that we've been saying. But this move in isolation, I mean, Leipzig couldn't agree a deal, and we're in. And I think that's because personally we've done some work with Mosquera, and I think it's more advanced than what people think. And there has been less saga to our signings, despite people's worry and PTSD. Like, look at Kepa. That was a fairly quick deal as far as the transition goes. Zubamendi is something that we've known for a while, so let's not comment on that. But Norgard and Partey, quick decision, by the way. Mosquera, this seems bloody quick. We had some faint links in May, and then bam, out of nowhere, deal advancing with multiple people on the same boat. Wouldn't surprise me that this gets done, fairly soon. And, all before the financial year of July 1st. I know people don't want to hear it, but it makes sense to me. It makes sense to get all the depth pieces on your books where you didn't spend in 2024 to get a forward. it makes sense to do that, and then open your next year's books in terms of putting on all of the center forwards. And yeah, and I was going to ask you this question before we go into the tactics: was, do you think there is anything as far as the Spanish recruitment goes? I mean, the links in general, it has been very Spanish dominant in terms of even from before. Again, Sesko and Gyökeres are maybe the exception, but generally speaking, a lot of our major targets are coming from La Liga. Like, do you view that as a Berta directive, or do you think it's a combined club directive?
Yeah, I mean, I never know how much of this is kind of conscious, but I guess what I do know is human psychology, and I think if you asked me to name 100 players, 100 football players, probably 80 of them would be Premier League players. You just know what you know, right? And Berta's been in Spain. Mikel Arteta obviously knows the Spanish league inside out. Like, I think when you're looking for security, you're going to lean on what you know, and it would make sense to me that Mikel would lean on players that he knows, from leagues that he knows. Berta would lean on players that he knows, from leagues that he knows. I don't know. I doubt they've sat down and said, right, we're going to target the Spanish market, but it makes sense to me that two guys who have deep experience in Spain, and also from a league that does bring up gems and does bring up, I would say, gems that have consistently translated. I think it does make a lot of sense. I do see the link. I do, and you consider sort of where things have gone from. I want to come to this. So this is sort of the squad depth, and maybe we can come to Mosquera in a second. Do you want to just while I'm doing this, do you want to just prep your side of the tactics board just to show us where Mosquera might be able to play? Because I think this is an interesting one, right? Like, so this is sort of the yellow players are the guys who've agreed contracts. Obviously, Miles has agreed new contract this summer. Gabriel's agreed new contract. The blue players are guys who we know are in talks over new contracts. So we're making some good headway there. I think we're assuming. Well, I think we know that definitely that Partey has gone. I think we are pretty much assuming that Zinchenko has gone. I think we're pretty well. Maybe today's news indicates that Tomiyasu is maybe on his way out potentially, but let's just put him over here for now. And that leaves us here, which leaves us with some depth issues. And what I like is we've immediately, George, for less than I don't know what Mosquera is going to be, but this is probably going to all in for Kepa, Norgard, and Mosquera. Probably all in less than 35, 40 million. I don't know the Mosquera number yet, but I would be surprised if it was much over that. And I'm really pleased with that. If Partey's moved on, we've got those depth pieces in. Now we need to raise the level, and that's the thing we were come to a little bit earlier. We've got the Zubimendi deal basically done. It's certainly here we go, even if it's not confirmed, and everyone is assuming that is going to happen. So that's in there. That's a level raiser for me in that area. And if we do this and we get this new winger in, which may mean a sale for potentially a Trossard, let's say it's Trossard for now, I'm not saying it definitely will be in, but a new winger and a new 9, that leaves our squad right now in a really, really healthy position. 2 players in each position, Raya and Kepa, Calafiori and Miles, Gabriel and Kivior, Saliba and Mosquera, White and Timber, you can all read. That puts us, George, for me, and we may end up with Trossard and we have to sell Martin, I don't know, financially, or we may, I don't know, Zinchenko might stick around, and so we have a little bit of depth. Tomiyasu is still sticking around, and we'll have that. But this leaves us I'm looking at a squad, and hopefully these guys will turn yellow as well, that has been refreshed and regenerated. If we get it done, this is the thing. We're looking at Kepa and we're looking at Mosquera, and we spoke about on the Norgard deal, right? All of this stuff is only great and really great if we then go and raise the level elsewhere. But we've done 1 of 3 level raises in Zubimendi. I believe we're going to get 2 more level raises, in my opinion, or certainly players that can add a lot. And for me, George, I look at that squad and I think, wow, I really do. I look at that squad and I think, especially with the new contracts, I look at that 2 players in each position and I think we are ready to compete. I don't know how you feel looking at that team with Tomiyasu around maybe as well.
I mean, I get confident. I mean, one of my biggest things when my remit was exiting the summer saying that Arsenal will win the Premier League or the Champions League. That was my goal from this transfer window, and I think that it has gone, a little bit under noticed about how light this squad is in general. I mean, it's one of the lightest squads in the league, actually. So we needed players, and I do believe that we need minimum 2 players per position. That's just logical to me. And there's some of these that can move. I mean, say you recruited Jarell Hato, then Miles jumps into the midfield and we start to add crazy quality there. You could get rid of a Kivior or something like that as well to facilitate it. We can start to make moves. I think Mosquera for me is the start as well as Norgard. We're filling in needed holes
Yeah.
that mean the squad's complete. But then you get to a point in which the squad is so good, you can start isolating. Okay, Jesus on 265 as backup to Saka. Does that make sense? Maybe let's upgrade in a better way there. Let's move around funds to make more sense of that. Kivior is brilliant player. Are we getting the most out of that for the player, his development and whatever? Can we upgrade there? Yes or no? Miles, do you prefer him in midfield? If we do, maybe we can recruit a left back to push that in. You start making decisions from a point of power. Right now, the squad prior to this summer was incomplete. You couldn't make those decisions. You simply had to buy bodies to fill in holes. So, yeah, from my perspective, the defense is obviously incredible, like crazy depth that I've never seen before. But the midfield begins to get really tasty when you start to add the potential Miles options, when you start to add even Kai Havertz's flexibility in left center mid, you start to add the Dowman impact, Vieira, who you haven't put, where does he fit in? We're starting to get players, and it's starting to become a squad. Absolutely, and it's looking like I'm leaning towards the squad now being not upgrades, I would say, as opposed to holes. Like before, I would say this squad is light. Now I'm getting players, and I'm like, okay, great. I've now got the players. Can I upgrade in specific areas and find value better and get a better wage bill allocation? And we're moving there. We're getting there, mate. If we end up doing what we need, I think that should be the goal of the summer. The squad is complete. Set up 2026 to make upgrades to players that you think we're not getting enough value of, or that we can get better value in.
Yep. And that's what the very, very best clubs do. And if we're trying to compete with them, we're trying to beat them in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Madrid are there so they can afford to wait however many years they waited for Trent. We haven't always been there, but then we can begin to if you have a fully formed squad, which I really don't. It's amazing it's taken us this long, but we are nearly there. I think you can then begin to make certain decisions. I know, for example, for you always think about Musiala. Where's he going to be in 2027, whatever it might be, but you can start to think like that, and that's the really, really exciting level raising stuff. Let's go back to Mosquera quickly. If you missed the start of the stream, we spoke more about Mosquera and sort of his qualities and so on. But let's go on to the tactics board for you, just sort of where you can see Mosquera operating, how you can see things sort of shaping out for Arsenal. It's an interesting one because Tomiyasu still exists, and I think that's good, to be honest, even in this bridging period. But yeah, Mosquera, if he I suppose at this point when he comes in, where do you see him playing, and how do you see him fitting in?
So I think I've given Saliba and Gabriel some proper rest, really. But I've got Mosquera, kind of at left center back, and Calafiori is the left center back, and we've got our Miles and Ben White as just some differences here, because we've got basically this 3-2 that we can operate that we all know and love, and I think that we're going to have more of a traditional pivot in your Zubimendi and Rice. But what Mosquera gives you is more of that wide center back in a 3 in ideal terms. He's not great in the central center back, but we've got Calafiori to be able to do that, and I think this back 3 carries a lot of benefits, to be honest with you. I mean, you're looking at a 3 really for me that are really true defenders, but also a lot of progression in there, and with a lot of flexibility. It allows Ben White to maybe be a little bit higher up, and we can put Saka a little bit more inside. Equally, I think that Yuri Timber gives us phenomenal flexibility. Let's say we did want to play with a Saliba, and Gabriel got a little bit injured. I think you can see this as an option. And maybe instead of White here, you would want a Yuri Timber, because now you're looking at maybe Miles coming a little bit more inside. Saka will be a little bit more wide. Miles comes in, and then Mosquera is a little bit more wide in terms of your ground coverage player. And you've got something that we've seen before in terms of the team, and you'll see this flexibility. Mosquera can play left center back. It's just not something that I would love for him to do. He is going to really offer that Saliba cover, but it's worth saying that that's flexibility here. And lastly, I do want to show kind of his his flexibility towards the Ben White role. Right now, what you're going to find is, let me just move everybody proper. So you could have a situation in which you've got this 3-2 here. And I think that when you're looking at two defenders like Gabriel and Mosquera, who inevitably have phenomenal ground coverage out wide, I think Mosquera will stay a little bit deep currently. And the only thing that I would probably ask is, can he do a little bit more of this? Right now, he can't.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to coach it. But yeah, as far as
Coaching
Gabriel goes,
sorry to cut you. Coaching you in what regard? Is in the timing of the runs, or in what sense?
yeah, definitely timing. But like, say he's in this area and, Mosquera's got the ball. Does he have the quality to develop a nice whipped cross into the box? I'm not too sure. Does he have the ability, so when he's in these positions, to find intelligent cutbacks out wide on the run? Those are stuff that I'm a little bit questioned right now, because I haven't really seen the sample. And certainly what he doesn't have is really that half space cross from these positions. Haven't seen that yet. But so that's why I think right now, in his current iteration and level, we're looking at more of somebody in the Gabriel mold of a wide center back in the 3 that can really get out here and really put pressure. And another option, by the way, let's say we're really defending a lead, or we're wanting to defend a lead. This could be an option where we do this kind of 3-5-2 iteration. And I could see an instance in which we've got, kind of everybody pulled out wide, and you could see a kind of, we'll put a little bit of our new signing in here in Norgard. And I could see, probably, I'll probably leave Timber, actually, because we do like that. I would probably have something a little bit more like this personally right now. But say we were really to defend a lead and we needed some help in this way, I could see that these guys are really quick out to their wing backs that really generate some nice coverage there. Mosquera has got a really firm ability to back up over here. And we could see an instance in which we're looking at, in very helter-skelter kind of situations, we need to lock down our defense. He gives you that kind of Gabriel-esque ability to really back up the channel and the channel run there. But to kind of take that away, I really think that the primary position, and we'll end on this so that everyone can see at the end, is going to be kind of the Calafiori opportunity here in central center back. And Mosquera is going to be somebody that, offers us that flexibility. And, we could have, of course, our typical kind of lineup come out here, and we'll have, kind of Martinelli kind of operate at left wing as usual. And, I think this is something that you'll probably see if Gabriel needs his rest. Again, you can throw in Miles in here, but Mosquera is going to be somebody that offers us that, right center back flexibility. And it's long time coming, coming.
Yeah, I think so. Nearly 2,000 of you watching live. Thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Cannon Podcast, but also get your questions in. We're going to end the stream with as many questions as we possibly can. We'll come to that super chat in just a second. And just while sort of people are getting their questions in, George, I mean, one thing to say is this is his heat map from this season in La Liga. So he has played the majority of this season on the left-hand side. So I wonder, because we're going to talk in a second about the Hato deal and sort of how this affects the left-hand side. I do think maybe there's some more versatility to go both sides than certainly for Valencia, but maybe Arteta's seen something as well there. So that could be an interesting one. Let's do this one, from Mikhail, who says, does this affect a Hato left-back deal? I can't see the Hato deal happening if this happens. Especially with this kind of versatility on the left-hand side. I think with the new Miles contract, with Calafiori, with Kivior, I mean, we keep talking about Zinchenko, so it still hasn't happened. I personally can't see a Hato deal happening. If it does happen, wow. That really tells you where Arsenal are this summer. But yeah, personally, I think it does, probably, Mikel.
I don't know. I I don't really agree because I mean, for me, you've lost Kieran Tierney, you've lost Tavares, you're losing Zinchenko, very heavily linked. That to me immediately means at least one left-footed, kind of left-sided defender should be coming in. If anything, I look at Kivior and Tomiyasu as extras here, because Mosquera for me is definitely a wide center back in a 3, fundamentally. You're looking at somebody that can really provide cover at right center back, really provide cover as well at left center back, but more in a ground coverage way. He's not going to be somebody that comes into midfield. He's not going to be making runs on the overlap. You know, he is going to be playing that position a little bit more as a true defender and like a channel defender in that sense. So, I mean, in terms of who got lost there, in terms of Kieran Tierney, Tavares, and potentially Zinchenko, you're talking about more fullback, areas there that could be replaced. I think it depends on a lot of deals. I mean, you might doubt the feasibility. Can we get all of those deals done to open it? But I think just on the player, I personally am not comfortable with calling him a left center back, even though he's played perfectly well with Valencia. He's got, the Van Dijk aspect like we've talked about before, but this is a guy that for me isn't really a fullback in those areas. He's definitely a center back, and he does have some issues again with the aerial defending, which is going to be an issue. Like, we use Gabriel as a very dominant aerial presence, and particularly in that left-hand side, because we have a lot of space there. Martinelli's out. He's got his touchline duties, and you have to deal with balls over the top into the channel. And Mosquera can get there on a ground coverage level, but he's not amazing in terms of his aerial duels. So for me, I definitely look at Tomiyasu and Kivior as maybe your questions in related to a Mosquera. And then in my mind, Kieran Tierney, Tavares, and Zinchenko mean at least one left-sided kind of fullback enters that zone. And then, but the thing is, I think this is preemptively covering Tomiyasu really is the crux for me, which I think we're trying to find a graceful way of moving on from that.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear your justification. I think it's slightly clinical because I think the question is, what will Arsenal feel that they can do? And I think they will look at the reason I say I think this affects the Hato deal personally is Arsenal will look at their squad, and Kieran Tierney's moved on, but they will look at left-sided defense. Who can go on the left side of their defense? They can go Gabriel, they can go Timber, they can go Kivior, they can go Zinchenko, they can go Tomiyasu, they can go Calafiori, they can go Lewis Skelly, and they can now go Mosquera. I can't imagine that they may, in that sort of clinical sense, go look at their skill sets and go whatever. But just from a pure numbers perspective, I for what it's going to cost for Hato, for the pathway, for other players in the academy, they've got to think about all that sort of stuff. I can't see them really pushing for this. If we end up with Hato, if Hato's being offered to us, which I can't imagine he will be for a ridiculous price, it's the sort of thing I can see happening. But I just think it comes a point where there's enough options there, and as much as we might like a Hato, I can't see it happening. Who knows though? Hato might be a sort of an end of the deal. I mean, we come back to sort of how you approach windows, right? There will be players who I'm sure we're looking at. I'm sure there's players that we haven't even thought about. If forget Jarell Hato, there's going to be players we haven't thought about who the club say, okay, if then, and Hato feels like one of those players. I suspect a lot of it depends on some fitness things as well. But yeah, just personally, I think it will, but we'll see how it plays out.
I do think if that's the case and Rodrigo is your choice at left wing, we haven't done a good job of platforming that deal whatsoever. Like, so it's a case of, if Rodrigo is your primary target at left wing and you're not going to recruit a defender that's able to give you that consistently, then that becomes a question mark. I'll be a major question mark.
I'll be incredibly cynical about that if we don't do that. I mean, again, I'm open to seeing how it works, and we have to be. But yeah, I would be on paper certainly very, very confused. People enjoying your Mosquera pronunciation. Keep it, George. Call him Mosquera.
Mosquera.
If Alex is right, does it mean we receive bad news in terms of Rodrigo deal, seeing as we need left back to complement that? Yeah, that could be another way of thinking about it. We don't know. We're guessing, of course, but it's possible. I mean, maybe we don't think we can get Rodrigo done, and therefore we're doing a different thing at left back. That could be another way around it, which is I think is a different
I think I
conversation.
kind of simply just look at this as we've needed Saliba cover for quite a while, for like over a year and a half at this point, and he provides that for me.
Yeah.
This is another center back. You know, in our collection of defenders, there are people that, you know, are center back that can play fullback. There are people that are fullbacks that can drop in to be center backs. This is a guy for me that absolutely is a partner in a center back. I don't think he offers versatility in the fullback roles that we're offering, both in overlap and in midfield. He's not somebody that does that. He's going to stay back in the defensive line, and he's a ground eater. So he definitely solves a hole. We needed 2 holes in the summer. Whether we do both of them is kind of a question of feasibility and number of deals, but I think he solves one, so I'm really happy about that. 1 year left, which, by the way, I don't think we've said previously in the stream, so you're looking at least 20 million euros. Was the supposed quote previously. So we're not looking at a major investment here, which is what I think is probably perfect for what that center back core needs, you know? And so to me, it makes a lot of sense. I love the idea of the deal. He is a raw prospect that we're going to grow with, and that's okay when you've got kind of the collection of people that we've got on the right-hand side, Ben, Timber, Saliba. The next one needed to be a prospect kind of guy, right? It needed to be someone to be a little bit more youthful with it. Now the left has got what? Gabriel, Kivior, Calafiori, Miles. If you really want to go there. And if you want to replace one of them, Kivior out for Hato in, fine. But those 4 on each side makes sense to me in terms of profile, age, and, you know, their flexibility in role.
I think so. This comes to last few questions. One from Captain Nano says, with Leon going down, could we go for Mika Tatze or Malik Fofana? Mika Tatze. Good. Thoughts on that, sorry, before we go to that super chat?
That's a great name. I don't know either of those two well enough, to be honest, to make a big enough comment rather. But yeah, I think Leon going down is kind of shocking news for the football fraternity. I'm sure that they'll maybe I don't know, do something in the courts to make sure that appeals or whatnot. But
yeah,
I mean, I think looking at the French market is something that I would really like us to start doing a little bit more of, because I think there's a lot of unknown gems there, personally.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I think it maybe talks to something we're doing this summer as well, which is, you know, if you think about the deals we're doing, Norgard feels like a bit of an opportunity because of the Thomas Frank leaving Brentford. You know, he did sign a new 2-year extension, but you know, I think he was heading to the end. This is a player with a year left. Kepa is a £5 million release clause, so I don't know. I like that sort of depth wise we're being smart about it. It feels nice. Let's finish this. Tom McFadden, could we sign Hato and have Miles as a left back and a 6 option? Yeah, I'm really fascinated to see how it all plays out. And again, how it all plays out may not be exactly what the plan was, which is, you know, they're very different things. But I think basically Miles will go there eventually. And the question is whether when we do it. And that will depend on a million factors. It'll depend on his development. It will depend on other players. It will depend on who we get in there. I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, if we did end up signing Hato, which would be a big surprise to me personally, but I'm open to it happening. And just to be clear, I'd love it to happen if we signed Hato, but I can only really see it happening if we get a big sale or we're being particularly ruthless. That might speed up Miles going in as a 6. It might just sort of slightly speed up that development. Who knows? Or even as an 8. I mean, that's a different conversation. But yeah, yeah, not necessarily as a single 6, but certainly heading into the midfield.
I see clear holes, honestly. You know, it requires sales. It requires sales of people that we know we are using currently. I think a Zinchenko sale would be great, and I think that, you know, a Kivior and a Tomiyasu sale makes us, you know, Mosquera signing work a little bit better. And
it's gonna be like your Ajax thing, where you just
absolutely
you just dig in.
Look, it makes sense to me. Like, we approached the summer with 2 holes. This is one of the holes that we're talking about. I do maintain the Hato move has so many positive knock-on effects in the squad or somebody in that mold. Like, getting that left back is pretty vital if you're saying that Rodrigo's your major signing. Even if you're saying Calafiori that you'd like at left center back, what does he need? A little bit more of a true defender that's able to deal with those 1v1s, that is better aerially. You can't just have Calafiori vacate that area and have nobody back there to deal with it. I mean, Miles getting into midfield, there's a lot of positive knock-on effects in terms of getting that left back. So, I mean, I hope it's something within the plan, and that, again, this Mosquera kind of deal was a little bit more in the sense of, this is a brilliant option in which we still need to cover some of the holes, but it doesn't stop us from doing something down the line. So yeah, I think that I also think it's more advanced than we think. I mean, the idea that, Hand of Arsenal, Ornstein, Fabrizio, everyone's going off on it. It suggests to me that this is a deal that's happening, not, a potential maybe.
Well, even since we last started, I think Fabrizio said something. He said Arsenal have given the green. Mosquera's given the go-ahead to Arsenal and is keen on the move. So we're getting pretty regular updates. Sorry to do a bit of self-promo, but over on the Different Knock, we did put together sort of the priority for this summer. I would say the prospect RCB/RB is pretty much ticked. I would say the second goalkeeper is pretty much ticked. Another 6'8" is pretty much ticked, and Zubimendi is pretty much ticked. So we're on our way. That was sort of my early window predictions and sort of things that I wanted to happen. We just need these forwards to start getting in. But look, we still haven't even got to July. We're not even in preseason. We're nowhere near it. And these deals take a long time, especially for the players you want. Especially when it feels like maybe Rodrigo wasn't right at our thinking because we didn't think he was available. And if he is, then great. Just woke up. I saw the news. Is it good news, Alejandro? If it's Arsenal signing a player, it's always good news. And thank you for your super chat. Thank you all for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the Cannon Podcast, and you can get us on Spotify and Apple, all that good stuff. We'll do a scattered episode on Mosquera at some point, but we thought we'd just go live on this one to talk about it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thanks so much for watching. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal. Just quickly as well, if you are a director on Patreon or YouTube, watch out for your name in this little outro.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Ferocious.